Now, almost everyone who has played Zelda Breath of the Wild enjoys the world and everything found within it, like the shrines and small enemy camps. They think the game is a pretty, fun, and light-hearted adventure in an open-world Hyrule that's filled to the brim with things to find and do. However, the game also does something that most people wouldn't expect when they first see the game. Especially because the graphics are cel-shaded, giving it a cartoony look. Now, what the game does is create stress, horror, and terror-filled sections and moments every 10 minutes almost. While most players don't fully realize it, but do experience the effects of it. And today we will take a look at what the game does to create those wonderful moments, and some will really surprise you. Now, everyone who has even played this game for an hour has heard or even seen one of the mighty Guardian Stalkers. This is a specific type of Guardian found throughout Hyrule, most commonly in the area surrounding the castle. They were built by the ancient Sheikah to be used as a powerful weapon against Calamity Ganon, which went horribly wrong as we all know. And now, under Calamity Ganon's influence, these gigantic robotic beasts roam the world, attacking anything in the name of Ganon, while also being one of the most terrifying creatures in the game because of their large size, huge amount of health, and ability to shoot huge laser beams that can instantly kill you. Sure, you can still beat them, and there are some tricks to make all of that easier, but in general they are really dangerous. But this enemy is also our first example of how Nintendo can create a tense and extremely scary scenario, basically out of nowhere. Alright, now just imagine you are walking somewhere in Hyrule Field, just minding your own business and harming no one. But then all of a sudden the music picks up and a Guardian starts chasing and attacking you, being a terrifying experience in general. And because of the fact that the music accompanied with this is so frantic, fast-paced and a piano, it creates instant tension and stress. Now, this is a great example of Nintendo adding something quite small, it's the music that causes instant stress after all, to put the player on edge. It's stupid effective at doing this, to be honest, and it shows that Breath of the Wild isn't just some happy kids game. And all it took was some music.
But Wily, I already knew this, and it's so obvious what Nintendo does here. How does this surprise me?
Hey, calm down. This is just a warm-up round. An example of Nintendo doing something like this and succeeding, which everyone basically knows about. And now we can move on to the more unknown ones, like traps, which are seen a lot in this game. A shocking amount, actually. And funny enough, examples of stuff like this are seen in the open world as well as inside of the many shrines. Outside in the world, we mostly come across stuff like boulders being thrown down mountains out of nowhere, almost crushing you. This is something the enemies do to get rid of you before you even get to their camps. Sometimes being successful, and other times not. However, what it does is create a tense and even shocking situation at times, while you're just walking up a mountain. Another great example of this is an underground room in the Lomai Labyrinth Island. Here you drop down and end up in a very, very deadly trap. A huge room that's filled with old and almost broken guardians that all of a sudden light up and attack you. Now sure, these guardians can't move, but still a ton of them can shoot lasers at you, being an extremely effective and utterly horrifying trap. And when you enter a shrine, you can also be confronted with something like this. Although the shrines offer more variety, like spiked balls, hidden enemies, fire, or even lasers. Again, the name of the game for Nintendo here is the element of surprise, creating some sort of jump scare moments in the game that's not similar to some sort of cliché horror, but more like an Indiana Jones movie. You know, when the whole boulder rolls down and everything? Something suddenly happens that you don't expect, and very quickly you notice that this is a trap and could be your end, causing your heart to race. All thanks to the element of surprise. But this isn't the only time Nintendo does this, because there are literally a shocking amount of enemies that can do something like this as well. One fun example of this is seen just outside of Hateno Village when you are traveling there for the very first time. When making your way there, you go past the cliffs of Quince, which form an alcove, and you go past a group of bokoblins that has formed a camp at the bank of the river below the cliff. Now this camp contains several bomb barrels and a treasure chest. Typical stuff really. But these creatures were doing something very interesting in the surrounding area. Like a bunch of Wild West bandits, they were using the local rocky terrain to hide and attack unsuspected travelers. including Link. So when you go there and don't pay attention, the bokoblins can pop out of nowhere and strike you down. But while this is a good example of enemies using clever sneak tactics to scare and beat players, many more can do this in the game. One other good example is the Yiga soldiers. And when traveling to Hateno, you also come across one of these. Sometimes they pop out of nowhere and just start attacking you, while other times they disguise themselves as a traveler and attack you. Again, another enemy that tries to cut you down when you least expect it, sometimes even delivering you a genuine jump scare moment. I have experienced something like that many times when roaming the world. I was just minding my own business and all of a sudden arrows hit the ground right in front of my feet, startling me. So personally, I think they do a pretty good job of creating tension and a feeling of unease. And now we of course have to look at the God Emperor of this whole concept. A creature that also does something similar to this, and with great success. The mighty Lizalfos, who are chameleon-like enemies that will actually camouflage themselves to their environment and wait for you to get near before attacking. Clearly, this is another great example of an enemy that tries to keep you on edge at all times, since they can be hiding anywhere. Sometimes you spot them and you're able to strike first, but other times you won't and they will jump up and come down on top of you with force. The amount of times I got jump scared by these enemies is also quite insane. Sometimes they are just positioned very well, so you don't see them at all. I've even seen friends of mine jump when they were just messing around on my save file when the game just came out. They didn't know about any of these enemies and their tactics, so they were completely caught off guard by all the foes I just mentioned, multiple times even. They are extremely good at what they do, and they aren't the only enemies in the game that can do stuff like this. I haven't even mentioned the Octoroks who shoot a massive rock at you from afar and then hide like nothing happened. Clearly Nintendo wanted players to constantly be on edge and in some sort of form of danger. There are a ton of enemies with ambush tactics after all. Clearly the sound design, random traps and enemies already show how Breath of the Wild creates terror. A sense of unease. Around every corner something new awaits. Sometimes being treasure, but other times just something that wants to spook and then kill you. So while this game is for 12 years and older, it does contain a lot of moments when Nintendo tries to surprise you or scare you deliberately. But there's still one thing left in the game which we see constantly that always makes us feel uncomfortable.
Beast. When the beast regains its true power, this world will face its end.
This fortress of evil is constantly looming in the distance, being some sort of scary place for the player, depending on who you ask of course. And the location itself is for sure terrifying in the beginning of the game, because it's filled to the brim with extremely strong enemies and flying robots that shoot lasers. So of course, if you have no experience or good gear, you will be destroyed in a matter of seconds, even when you try to get close to the place. And so you avoid it, and even fear it to an extent. In general, it reminds me a lot of the moon scene in Majora's Mask. In this game, a mysterious mask known as Majora's Mask was stolen by the Skull Kid, and is then used to summon the moon to destroy the entire land of Termina. And you must stop the destruction within 3 days. And thanks to this apocalyptic looming urgency, there's a recurring theme of death, as well as slightly spookier designs being seen a lot in the game. So many people consider Majora's Mask to be an overall dark game. And in the game, the moon constantly looks down on you, which many players found scary or unsettling. And to be honest, Hyrule Castle in Breath of the Wild has a similar role, while also being the last level and always accessible. You can beat the final boss at any time after all. But this place, along with all the other remnants of the old world, are there to make players feel uneasy, while it's also great for world building. So in the end, it served two purposes and does this extremely well, to be honest. And so you see, ladies and gentlemen, while this game isn't rated 18 plus or something like that, it does try to scare you in ways, which most players don't really think about, but now that you've seen this video, it's quite clear that it's a crucial part of the game. And now you all know what I mean when I say, Zelda Breath of the Wild creates a feeling of terror. Thanks for watching, be sure to like this video, click in the upper right corner for more videos, click subscribe and the bell button so you won't miss anything, leave a comment naughty or nice, and I will see you all in the next one.